Hey guys, welcome back to another Unreal Engine 4 tutorial. In this tutorial, it's going to be a follow-up to the previous tutorial, which was showing you how to download and install Unreal Engine 4 from their website and then through the project launcher, the Epic Games launcher, and how to download from there and start a project. So that was the easy way. The more complicated way is to download the engine source code from GitHub. So that's what we're going to do today. So the first thing you got to do, pretty similar to the last tutorial, is you got to go to unrealengine.com and create an account. And at that point, you can create an account and download the project launcher, the Epic Games launcher. That's fine. You can do all that. Watch the previous tutorial to get more information on that. And then the next thing you got to do, I mentioned this in the previous tutorial as well, is you got to download Visual Studio. The community version is free to download, so go ahead and download that. And when you do download that, you should get the Visual Studio installer. And in this installer, there's a couple of things you want to do to make sure you have everything you need to then compile the source code correctly. So I'm just going to show you quickly on the installer what I have installed. Um, so let me go ahead to modify, and it'll show us what I have currently downloaded. So the biggest thing to have downloaded is game development with C++. That uses the full power of C++ to build professional games powered by DirectX, Unreal, or Cocos 2D. So make sure you have that checked. I also have checked Python development. You don't have to have that. I'm not 100% sure what other things you necessarily need to have, but what I like to have is Universal Windows Platform Development, Game Development with C++, and ASP.NET and Web Development. Those are things that I personally have. What I'm 100% sure of is that you need Game Development with C++. And when you do select those, you also get additional components, I should say, and that's listed here. I'll go through them real quick. You got .NET Framework 4.6.1 targeting pack, C# and Visual Basic Roslyn compilers, MS Build, text template transformation, blah blah blah. You can read it on screen. And you also have tabs for individual components and language packs and obviously installation locations. Individual components, there's quite a few. Some you need, some you don't need. What I'm going to go over is the things that I needed when I was first doing this myself, when I was receiving build errors and compilation errors. I'm going to go over that process, just tell you what I needed to do to fix those things. So we'll go over these more individual components when that time comes. Just make sure you have Visual Studio installed and make sure you have, at the very least, the game development with C++ workload selected, and it should install all the necessary individual components. And then once you have that fully downloaded, you're ready to go to the next step. And the next step is GitHub. So you need to make a GitHub account. I already have one, so there's no issue there. If you wanted to, sign out, whatever. So you can. This is what you'll see when you get to GitHub.com. You can sign up for GitHub. So let me just sign in, just to get back to where we were. And you also need to connect your GitHub account to your Unreal Engine Epic Games account. So if you go to epicgames.com, you can sign into your account and then go to connected accounts. Right now, for whatever reason, when I select connect with GitHub, it does this whole verifying thing and it redirects me back here. So maybe it's currently broken, maybe it's just me, but I already have my account connected, so this doesn't really matter. But just make sure you have GitHub and you connect, and then you connect with the login with what you just set up if you made a GitHub account following along with this tutorial. And then once you are connected, you can basically you can search for Epic Games Unreal Engine. You can find that repository. And you can have different branches. There's release, there's master, there's all these previous builds and everything like that. The safest bet is release from my experience. They have documentation on the different types of branches. I'll put this in the description just so you have access to it. But essentially, you have release branch, which is extensively tested by their QA team and is a great starting point for Unreal for when you're downloading it. Master branch contains the most recent technology. It's not guaranteed to compile from source, so that's a little bit dangerous. So your best bet is release branch. If you do master branch, it's not guaranteed. You might have to find some additional information online to actually get it going. So let's go back. So we have release, and then you can go ahead, do a new pull request, and let's see. Actually, I don't know. You don't do a pull request, do you? Yes, you do a fork. I'm sorry. So where should we fork Unreal Engine? So forget what I said with pull request. There's a top option here for fork. So click fork. Where should we fork Unreal Engine? Put your account in, and then there you go. You forked it. Great. Everything's good to go. And so basically, you should have to either refresh and go back to the code tab, or you might just have to refresh the website. But eventually, you will get the fork. This is your fork. It'll be your account name / Unreal Engine, and you'll have all this information here. It's the release build, and at this point you can clone or download it. So what we're gonna do is download the zip. And one thing I experienced while going through this is that when you go through the whole generation of project files and when it has to fix and download dependencies, it's best to put this in a directory that has as few characters as possible because there could be problems with too long file names or too long path names or URL names or anything like that. So just make sure it's at the as little characters as you can get it to be wherever you download it. So I'm going to download it to C drive. I'm going to make a new folder. I'm just going to call this tutorial engine or tutorial Unreal Engine. And I'm going to save. And at this point, it is a lot to download. It's not that much to download. It's 350 megabytes, so we already are downloaded, so that's great. So let's go to our directory. It was in C drive, tutorial Unreal Engine. So let's go ahead, and this is the part that will take a good amount of time, depending on how good your PC is. Unzipping does take a little bit. So while it unzips, I'm going to pause the video, and I'll come back once it's done being unzipped. Now that we have the engine unzipped in our directory here, what we have to do next is there's the setup.bat, and what this will do is it'll download, it'll check all the dependencies that the engine needs, and after it's done installing, that's when we go ahead and we need to do the generate project files.bat, and that'll generate the actual project files. And then from there, at that point, we will have a solution file that we can open up in Visual Studio, and then we can compile the engine. So let's first do setup.bat. So it's checking dependencies. It will find all the dependencies. It'll download all of them. And this does take a little while. So once it's done, I'll come back and we'll continue together. So I'll see you in just a second. Okay, now that our dependencies have been installed, we have to do the generate project files.bat. This should be much quicker than the setup.bat since it doesn't really have to download anything. So it should just take a minute. So I'll stay with you during this part, and from there, we should be able to get a solution file, which we can then open up in Visual Studio. And then from there, we can build the actual engine and then pray to all the gods that it compiles. And then from there, we just got to, I believe, we have to find an Unreal Selector.exe, and that's a pretty quick process. We just launch an executable. It selects the Unreal Engine for us, and we should then have an editor exe that we can then open, and we have the project. So those are the last few remaining steps. And while I was talking, our generate project files worked. We got the solution file, so let's open that up as well. Okay, so we got the solution file open. Now, the documentation tells us to make sure we are in development editor. So we gotta go to our solution configurations, go to development editor, and Win64. So that's what we want. Um, so also, just so we know as well, what I've experienced at least, we gotta right click on the UE4 file here, right click on it, go to properties, and we just gotta make sure that the VC++ directories are set correctly. From my experience, when I didn't do this, I got some compilation errors, so I just like to make sure we do it correctly here. So for include directories and reference directories, library directories, like all these directories that are here, we just got to select the drop-down menu and do inherit from parent or project defaults. So we just got to do that for each one. So let's quickly do that. There we go. Hit apply. And now we should see all the directories automatically get set for us. So we'll hit OK. So now all that's left to do is right click and select build. So depending on your machine, this could take a little bit. So I'll come back to you when mine is done. And if I run into any compilation errors, we'll walk through that together as well. So I'll see you guys in just a bit. Okay, so the build was successful on the first try, I swear. It must have been some sort of Christmas miracle, because usually it never builds successfully on the first try, but we did it. So now, not that it is built successfully, we should be able to go, I believe it's an engine, binaries, Win64. We gotta scroll all the way down. We should find the Unreal version selector. So let's double click that. Register this directory as an Unreal Engine installation. Yes. Registration successful. Easy as Sunday morning, I guess is the saying. So now we can scroll up. We should be able to find UE4editor.exe. So now we can open that. Allow access, of course. And it should open up the engine, or the editor, I should say. And I'm running 4.23.1, so we'll let it initialize. While it's initializing, I guess this is a good chance to just plug everything I need to plug. So in the description, you're going to find links to the Facebook page, you're going to find my Twitter, you're going to find the Discord server, and you're also going to find my Instagram. Make sure you follow everything you want to follow. I'm not going to tell you to follow all of them because I know some of those are not for everybody. What I would urge is that you do join the Discord server, just because we have a lot of channels about the different aspects of game development. Right now, not a lot of people in the server, which is fine, but we do have channels for like C++, blueprints, Q&A if you have any questions about these tutorials or any of the live streams. We have an announcement channel where I just announce, things about the project, or, when I'm going to stream on Twitch. I'll also put a link to my Twitch into the description as well, so you can follow that if that's what you prefer, because that's where we're going to be developing our game together over time. So, when you watch those streams, you should then follow these tutorials. They kind of go hand in hand with each other. What else is there to plug? I guess going back to the Discord server, there's 2D art channels, 3D art channels. There's audio, everything like that. You'll be able to speak with me directly if you would like. So it's just a good direct way for me to communicate with you guys and vice versa. So make sure you join the Discord if you're going to join anything. Obviously, as well, like, comment, subscribe to the channel while you're here for more tutorials. So I think that's about it that I have to plug. So we're still at 45%. So just for the sake of avoiding any kind of awkward silences, I'm going to cut away, and once the editor opens, I'll be back. So I'll see you in just a second. Okay, so the editor's open. We're on the Unreal Project browser. So here you can select projects that already exist with this version of the engine that you have. Right now, none of these are associated with this engine, which is fine. We want to go ahead and do a new project. And here you have a lot of templates. You have like blueprint only templates for first person, flying, third person, rolling, side scroller, things like that. And you also have C++ versions. So for the sake of these tutorials, we're going to just do C++, just so we have access to both Blueprint and C++ using Visual Studio and everything like that. And we're just going to select third person just for the sake of creating a project. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to change the directory of where this location is going to be. I'll put it in game development folder. I'll just do UE4 tutorials. There we go. And I'll just call this tutorial. And at this point, you can name it whatever you want. You can change your directory to whatever you want. You can set to desktop or console or to mobile and tablet. Usually you want to leave maximum quality. It's fine. And then with starter content, you're just going to get, the mannequin model, some basic shapes, and things like that. So at this point, you're done. We can create the project. So we're going to go ahead and do that. And this could take a minute or two. Depends. So I'll stick around just because I keep going back and coming, going away, coming back, and things like that. So typically, when you do build an engine like this, it will open up Visual Studio automatically. So we got that going for us. We already have it open because of the build, but we can close that. And now it will open up our project code. I don't know if it opens up a specific C++ file or a header file. It might open up the character one, or it might not open anything at all. But here we have our engine and we have our project all in Visual Studio. And in the background, we should, actually, I don't know if it'll open up the editor or if we have to compile it. I think we have to compile it or at least launch. So we'll try. So we should be able to do F5. And this could take a second. It really just depends on how fast your machine is. So it opened up our Visual Studio project. We're going to hit F5 like I just did, just repeating myself just because sometimes I might go too fast. But we hit F5 and now we're building. And since it might take a little bit, I'm going to go back. I'm going to go away one last time. And then I'll come back when the build is hopefully successful and we have the actual editor open. So I'll see you guys in just a second. Okay, so our build was successful, and now it should be launching the editor in hopefully a couple of seconds. So it's loading a bunch of symbols and stuff like that. Just because it's the first time, it might take an extra couple of seconds. If you can see at the bottom, it's loading a bunch of symbols. Loading fewer symbols might improve debugger performance. I don't care. Don't show this message again. We don't really need to deal with that. But it should be opening up here. So now we got the tutorial editor. It's at 71%, as you can see. So I'm not going to go away. I'm going to stick with you at this point. Should just be another minute. But once this opens, we're pretty much done with this tutorial. We got the project up and running. We built the code from source through GitHub, and we actually got the editor to open. So I would consider that a miracle in most cases, just because, I don't know, sometimes when you deal with the source code and C++, historically for me at least, it's never been easy. So it's nice to have been able to have this up and running as quickly as we did, and especially on the first try. So we have our editor open, and just to prove everything's okay, we can open and play and run around. So just a quick recap. In order to get the engine to build from source code, you need to do a couple things. First, you should set up a Epic Games or Unreal Engine account. You can go to the website. I'll put that into the description. You just sign up there. Then you need to go to GitHub. I'll put a link to GitHub as well. Create an account there. And then you basically need to go to your Unreal Engine profile. You make sure you link the two, and then you should be able to get access to the Unreal Engine or Epic Games organization on GitHub. And then from there, you can find their project for Unreal Engine. You will choose the release version if that's what you want to choose. You'll fork it, put it into your own repository. Then you'll download the zip file to whatever location you want to put it in. And then you unzip it. And once it's unzipped, you go ahead and there's the setup.bat file. So you'll run that. It'll download and check for all dependencies that it requires. Once that's done, you'll do generate project files.bat. That one's a little quicker. It generates our project file and our solution file. And then we open up our solution file in Visual Studio. Also, I forgot to mention, make sure you download Visual Studio and everything like that, and the appropriate modules and workloads and components and stuff like that. But once we have the solution file, we just got to make sure that all our directories are set up correctly in our settings in Visual Studio. So you just got to make sure it just inherits automatically and apply. And then once that's done, we literally just make sure we're in development editor mode for Win64, that build configuration. Then we right click on the UE4 project and hit build. Once it builds successfully, if it does, you should then be able to navigate to the binaries folder and then find the Win64 folder. I think, yeah, it's engine, then binaries, then Win64. Then you'll have the Unreal version selector exe. You'll select that. Make sure you register your engine with that directory. And then when you do that, you should then have access to the UE4 editor.exe. You open that. You choose what kind of project you want to make. And then Visual Studio should open up. And then you just press F5. It'll launch the editor, and you'll have your project like we have here. So it's a lot of steps. Is it worth it? I don't know. It depends on how you want to run your project, but I think it's useful information nonetheless. So that's it for this tutorial. When I was first running this, when I was first downloading the engine, I did run into some, not crashes, but some compilation errors. So I'm going to link a couple of documents in the description as well of those specific cases, just in case you run into them as well. But if you do have any problems, make sure you comment and let me know, or you can join the Discord server. There's that Q&A channel. You can ask any questions you want. So thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate it. I hope you learned something, and I'll see you guys in the next tutorial.